Hello, how are you guys doing? I hope everybody is well and doing great. Um, Last time we talked about the pre-Socratic philosophers, and then I don't know how much you remember, and then the source is really limited, and then their work is not survived, and then yeah, usually kind of they try to get all the information or resources from other people's citation. Sometimes it's hard to understand the basic kind of logical process, and then but still we consider the basic fundamental idea of what they talk about, what they study, right? And I hope remember you guys, and there was the early pre-Socratic philosophers and early philosophers, and then they really heavily study on the cosmology, right? Study about the universe, and usually they try to they are the monoist, and then try to one thing that pick the one thing and then explain the whole universe and systems, right? But they they are a little bit expand, as time went by, the philosophers and next philosophers kind of expanded their knowledges based on others, and right? Some of them is based on others' idea and expanded. Some of them is totally different, brought a totally different idea to explain the universe. And they always talk about metaphysics, right? What is God and realities and what's principles and what's absolute like this and laws. But later on, they kind of developed the words look into humans and try to explain the humans, right? And but it's not complete, but they already started, and they are interested in life, and then Pythagoreans, they uh, uh, brought up the reincarnations. Yeah, and a lot of different ways, but still they are really interested in the world, the universe, and that was the work of the pre-Socratic philosophers. And then today, today we're gonna talk about the Greek philosophers, and after the uh, pre Socratic, and maybe Socrates and Plato's and Aristotle's and Plotinus and Stoic and Epicureans. And there's a kind of ancient Greek philosophers. Yeah, let's just start off with Socrates. Who is Socrates? Have you heard about Socrates? And usually he had really um, it's kind of cruel wife on him, and he cursed a lot and kind of treat him bad, and that is. But another thing is that um, we these one is kind of give credit to Socrates, but exactly we don't know who said about know yourself. There's another motto when you think about Socrates. And then Socrates is he's really reputed the sophist because they rarely uh, relatives, and they really bring up to the ethics and politics, and then their point is really relative, and then based on they're really um, specialist on the rhetorics, and then the philosophy is really relativism, right? And depends on the situation. They really, that's why capricious. Depends on the situation. The conclusion is different. That's why and Socrates didn't like them and repudiated the sophists. And he was executed in 399 by the Athenian state for disbelief in the official god and for the corrupting the youth. So I think that his influence is great to others, and then especially young people, and he doesn't acknowledge what the official gods, and that's why he executed. And he said about the sophists, and he insisted on getting to the root of the philosophical question. So exploring first here, then there, right? And that is they travel a lot and try to teach a rhetoric, and they don't have a consistent versus the sophist. I mean, they don't have the consistent philosophical methodology and directions. So the sophist, he said that he's rely on living in accordance with their philosophy. So he refuses the opportunity to escape death and wanted to show himself loyal to the government of Athens, so willing to take it. So he tried to live with what he believed and what he think. Tried to there is no gap between what he believed and what is the methodology of his philosophy and what is the thinking of his life. So that's why even though he had a chance to escape from the death penalty, but he didn't take it. And that's why he reputed the sophists. They are kind of dualistic and not a dualistic, relativist, right? And his main method of talking with others, we call the dialogue. Dialogue is his main way that he can talk to people, let them remember, let them know that they don't know some part of their one, they don't know the people of their logic, and then they kind of acknowledge themselves, right? So he sought out people who he thought might be able to answer important questions, and he interrogated them rigorously, talk about and question, and then he regularly imposed flaws in the response of the expert. And he sort of defined terms that what is justice really, what is a virtue, like characteristic in the dialogue, kind of putting up the example of this quality. But that is kind of he used and talked to people, and then if they kind of help them to ignite into the other area, right? And Socrates wanted to know more than examples, so he's really pursuing the knowledge, right? So characteristic of the dialogues bring up example, but this kind of quality, right? And but he wants to know more, he acknowledges that he claimed that within him was diamond and divinity, and he believed that everyone could find the truth by looking in. So really introvert with himself. Is a diamond divinity, and then it's really introspective, right? Look into yourself. And you consider the truth. Maybe, and his dialogue and help people realize that how they are not perfect, how they are thinking, that is maybe they are thinking wrong, and then try to show that right, and the dialectic and introspection together constitute the Socrates epistemology, right? And epistemology is kind of the knowledge, the system of knowledge, right? And the emphasis on the dialectics renews the Greek rationalistic tradition, though, right? And it's not just how to live. It's not about how the people shall live. It's about how to know, right? And so the emphasis on introspection, however, it's located truth in individual subjectivity, but still, he really focused on the intellectual and on rational kind of reason, but still open to the individual subjectivities. So subjectivitism is but it's a little bit different from the sophist. Sophist, he tried to make their own things and change it depends on the situations. But this subjectivity is kind of look into yourself, and then you consider truth. That's Socrates. Yeah, I remember when I take the class, and then his dialogue, his main methodology of philosophy, dialogue and introspection. Yeah. And Plato, after that, he was the Socrates, the disciples, and then Plato is kind of he's wanna see the truth, between some people say that the being is fundamentally changeless, right? But the other side is what? And Heraclitus, Heraclitus is the reality of elements are constant change, right? This account is kind of different, but he tried to put together. And that's why he tried to understand the both and find the truth, try to find the truth. And so he bring them together into broader systematic understanding, and Plato so provided distinct roles for reason and sense experience, and soul and body, and concept and matter, object and subject, and so on. So here his influence is really, really big. Yeah. So Plato's epistemology began with observation. We can learn very little from our sense organs. He doesn't give them many the credit on our sense, even though he didn't ignore it, but that much give the credit. He didn't give much credit for our sense. So he said that we have the rational ability to correct these deceptions and to find the truth. Still, heavily rely on the rational abilities. So he said it is by our reason also we form concept of things. So we have never seen the perfect square. Just think about square. For example is here. But somehow we know that what the perfect square would be like. Perfect square, right? But we know that the mathematical formula that generates one. Do you know what is a perfect? Three sides is the same, and four sides is same square. Yeah. Since we don't learn the concept of squareness by sense experience, that's true, but we must learn it from the reason, based on the knowledge, right? So, he used a lot of different things and trinities and forces and humanity and like this. We can now, we don't see this, but somehow we know them. That's why he gives more credit the rational ability than the sense. Think about what is the something is there, and then he said these concepts of Plato called forms or ideas. Now I don't want to say ideas and ideas, and then because of the forms and ideas, and then we can do it. So he said we cannot find these forms on earth, but they must exist another realm or world of forms. But there is another realm, but we don't know where it is. That's the kind of abstract, right? And kind of it's opposed to the worldly sense. That's why it's hard to understand. So just think about, we are really limited to our sense organs, right? Observations. And he said that the forms are the object of sensation. Okay, we see my phone, this is the object of your sense. It's not. It's not forms. But we don't see but behind something, right? And we know through the intelligence alone, through reason. Through reason. It's not the physical one, and then what is this form? How can you reason this one? That's why that is a form. He believes that forms are real things and are the model of things on earth, copies. So physical form is here, but forms is a copy of the earthly things. It's not same or just model. But it's not the same as physical form. That's forms, right? Physical things. But the forms are the perfect, immaterial, invisible, changeless, intangible object. Wow, that's why it's abstract. We cannot. What is that one then? We cannot see. It's changeable, invisible, intangible. We cannot. What is that one? That's a form that something is a kind of imagination, in our imagination. That's why we can know through the intelligence alone and through reason. But forms serve as a model and exemplars in the criteria for earthly things, right? That's the forms. Maybe we can see that one, not a characteristic though. It's not a characteristic. So it is the forms that enable us to know the earthly things that imitate them. So we can know that someone is virtuous only by what? Comparing him with the norms of ideal virtues. What is ideal virtues, right? That is a kind of example though. Yeah, what is the forms? The forms exist in a hierarchy. Highest being, the form of the good. He said, just think about, he said, suppose we learn that triangles, trees, and human beings, and justice are when we learn what each is good for. Everything is good for something, so everything exists, participate in the form of good to some extent. But we don't know. But the word of form therefore contains not only formula of the making object, but also knows defined purpose of the object. So eventually there is hierarchies there, and then eventually the form of good serves a norm for human goodness. That is our standard. That's a criteria, the best criteria of human life, for human goodness. Because it's orderly, general, and abstract, we cannot see. Right? And he said any principle that is more specific, less normative, less authoritative. Such is a consequence of trying to understand the goodness as an abstract form of rather than real of a personal absolute. It's not a personal stuff, right? And he said already said that the world of sense experience is modeled on the world of the forms. It's not reality, but it's kind of a shadow of the forms, right? And sometimes he everything he cannot explain by this, and sometimes he rely on the myth when he could not come up with a properly philosophical account of something, right? But look at this, and then significant that he saw the need for some means to connect the forms with the sense of the world, and it is significant that he made the connection personal rather than impersonal. Yeah, that's why that is kind of influence. Still, even though we try to explain everything by intellect or human intellect or the reason, but some portions we cannot do. Maybe that is for that and was their religion, all the religion kind of still is influence on him because he cannot explain what it is. So we're going to ask what is how we know that the forms are located where, as we read in the this changing world and defective world, and where is the forms? So really think about it, really ideal, right? But something is there, and something is kind of the origin of the universe, right? But it's not a universe, but there is a lot of different maybe forms there, right? Depends on the. And Plato still reflects the subjectivism of the sophist and Socrates, and then looking like this, we look in. So he said we find within ourselves recollection of the poems, but still by the intellectual, by your reason, you can know the poems, but still we can find ourselves recollection of the poems. You have something in your memories and recollect from them. Recollections, right? And everyone, we must limit to the kind of for the recollections. He said that human being we must have an experience of the poems. If we don't, and then you cannot recollect what it's about, what it's like. And but when he said not in this life where we experience limited, imperfect, and changing things, but in other life before this one. So Plato embraces Pythagorean or pretty doctrine of incarnations. And just think about the poems. Something is similar that we cannot see here. And if we compare with the kingdom of God and with the poem, and then poem is we cannot tangible, but we cannot visible, but something is there. But kingdom of God is not physical, and physical is later. And then when Jesus Christ started and kingdom of God is started, we cannot say God is like a dictator or the president and reign the whole world, reign the whole Christians. No, we cannot see that, but it's just spiritual. God reigns people's heart. There is a kingdom of God is there. But we cannot see it, but still we have some idea about kingdom of God, like a poem. The poem that Plato said, right? And still, the world of sense is not strictly not knowable, but Plato compares it to the shadow cast by the fire in a cave. So you cannot see, but sense of knowledge was that's like a shadow that reflected the reality forms, right? He said that kind of 4 stages of the knowledges. There is an intuitive vision of the forms, intuitive, right? You cannot see, you cannot sense. And then first 2 stages, here is like imaging and belief. Imaging, belief, and visual and image world of the appearance. That one is opinion. The last 2 is thinking and intelligence. There's a 2, right? And first 2 to the sense, belief, and visual things and imagination comes from what? Sense experience. Last 2 and the thinking and intelligence come through the reason. So our experience is illuminated by this one. Form of good, right? Our sense experience is illuminated by the sun. But our knowledge of intelligible world is illuminated by the form of the God. So a little bit different, right? If we cannot see it, then it's hard to see the world. That's why he said it, and illuminated by the sun. And so Plato is kind of divided. One is opinions, one is knowledge. This is knowledge versus opinions. There's a world of the appearance is a belief, and imagine is kind of that's opinion, but knowledge intelligence of knowledge is what? Intelligence and this is kind of a object of the good, and forms is their mathematical object is here. That's the intelligible word, and that is a visual things and imagination is opinion. There's a kind of is a four stage of the this is a mind, four stage of mind, and there's an object of the good. So imagine, belief, and thinking and intelligence. So Plato considers knowledge from the another perspective. What is that? Knowledge is motivated by love. Love, yeah. We can see, yeah, we saw already. And it's a beautiful object. We see an echo of the true beauty, but we are moved by passion to seek the form of the beauty itself. Do you know? It's not a physical thing, but behind something. So, like study of beauty is aesthetics, something like that, yeah. And that. And just think about it, always think about the form, yeah, the forms. It's good, it's not a shadow, right? But real, this is a shadow of the, shadow of the form, physical stuff. So Plato, divided soul, soul, he talk about the soul, and then three, parts. One is the lowest one is the appetitive, So the lowest one is appetitive, the seek physical necessity and pleasure, the lowest soul, and physical, like a physical body. And what about the next, the higher one is the spirit, which include anger, ambition, desire for the social honors, and so on. Little bit not just for the physical need, and then maybe they are pursuing a little bit higher and social and economic status and like this. And well, the highest one is the rational, which is seek knowledge for its own sake. Okay. There is kind of when you study, maybe we can talk about later how people understand the human being, and there is a 3 division or two divisions. And 3 divisions say that, and there is a body and soul and spirit. 2 division is the Apostle Paul kind of use the interchangeably with soul and then the spirit. So they don't divide it, but it's like a Plato, and if we divide the human being in 3 parts, and then there's a spirit, soul, and bodies. Maybe almost, it's kind of application, but we can see what is it, and how similar. And Plato made interest like the Socrates, and then how to live. He's one of major interested. And that's why what is the virtue? What is the form of virtues? What is the form of the good? He concluded that what's a virtue is knowledge. And people never do wrong, except out of ignorance. If you don't know, maybe you do wrong. But if you're not ignorant, but if you cannot do wrong, if you have knowledge, that means it, right? And Plato yeah, Plato, so live right is to know the good, the form of good, right? That is a, yeah, yeah, he's kind of, uh, it's not about how to live in like actual culture, but it's kind of knowing, yeah, knowledge is really important. And maybe you can see the different things. Maybe here is a little bit kind of divided the people's group, and then he in his ideal state, and then patterns are governed by the governed by the what appetite of the soul, the military by the spirit, and the ruler by the rational. Just think about how divided the society, and then ruler gonna be dictator, right? And look at this, and then he says, so the rulers of the state must be philosophers, and who understand the form. Such a state will be totalitarians claim the authority over the whole area of life. So upper class shall their women's communally, and children will be raised by rulers. That's a kind of I think it's, I don't know. It seems like too much, but based on his philosophy. So he claimed access to absolute truth. So we can assess absolute truth. So Plato's rejections of the relatives, but his absolutism, what makes him a totalitarian? What is a totalitarian? Right? Philosopher understand forms. And he thinks that the philosopher have knowledge and must rule everything. What about nowadays? So totally different concepts, right? So, what is Aristotle is a disciple of Plato. Aristotle, the mythology is Plato. So he continues to distinguish between form and matter, but for him, forms is not found in this separate world. Rather, form is an element of things in the world we perceive. It's not separate from the form is not separate from the world, but just think about Plato is kind of really abstract, right? It's really focused on the metaphysics and then abstract, but Aristotle, his form is an element of things that in the world we perceive. A little bit kind of come down and orient more, give them more credit of our sense, right? So main category of the Aristotle's philosophy is substances. What is the substances? Substances is the individual things like rock, tree, table, animal, person, but there is with one exception that all substances contain both form and matter, right? But individual things but still have what? Form and matters. It has form and matters. What is a matter? Matter is the what? what something's made of and the ingredient of a bread, to think about the clay of the statues. That's matter. But the matter mixed together and then made something is that there is a form, not the physical one, but we can perceive, right? The quality that make the things is what it is. That's the form. Form is what is the things, and the quality of what is the thing. Or the oneness of the things, and the quality that makes things what it is. What is the form of a bread? Bread. Tree is a tree. So the matter is what distinguishes one piece of bread from one another. Because of different ingredient, different bread, right? But one free from another and one plus from another, that's the different. Mean that each one has own forms, right? So form and matters are very kind of relative. It's not absolute. And Aristotle insists that such prime matter is not actually found in nature. What is that? In natural world, we are not only there are only substances, and the matter exists only conjunction of with the forms. Such a substance is a little bit different, but still matters and the forms are, it's in my mind, right? We cannot see it in the natural world. So in combination of your form and matters in individual things inject in the elemental purpose needs of teleology into everything. Just there is a kind of a reason and purpose, and because what that is there, like that. And form and matters, right? Here is form and matter is here, so we cannot see the forms and matter, but has the purpose, communicate. Right? So for Aristotle, the nature and the purpose of things are the same. So there is here and then, okay, so we cannot see the forms matters, but there is a purpose of this nature and these things. So form is not just what things are, it's also what they should be. Or things are, should be, and what they strive to be. It is kind of we cannot change them. Form is a normative category as well as a descriptive one category. But things are, so we can describe something, and then what is a normative is set by the rules or by the criteria. Especially potentiality and actuality is a really important aspect for the Aristotle's philosophy. And the form direct matter to realize its potential. Okay, direct the matter to realize its potential. The potential becomes actuality. As the potential becomes actuality, the object becomes fully formed. Okay, there is something, potential is kind of, a lot of stuff is what is the potential is here, and then we can put a lot of things. Maybe the original is kind of potential, but actually we can use and then actuality. That is the what the object become fully formed, right? And it becomes what it inherently is. Inherently, we cannot see the inherently, but Aristotle said the in potentiality matter is permanent, but in actuality form is what? In potentiality matter is permanent, but in actuality forms are permanent, already formed, right? So here is that distinction between potentiality and actuality is a general explanation of change. Something is keep changing, right? And change which simply the movement, the change is what? The movement of from potentiality to actuality. He used the form and matter distinction to describe the human nature, and he said soul is the form of the body. Soul, the form of a body, and kind of it's a little bit different from the Plato, and Plato said it's kind of a shadow, right? But it's a form of the body, different. And soul was quite independent of independent of a body. So present, is presently confined to the body. So soul is independent. So this idea would suggest that soul and body are inseparable, and the soul vanishes when the body dies. Yeah, I have a kind of a thought. I remember that, and when people died, and people said, I saw the soul is left him and going somewhere. Yeah. And then later on, we said, who died in neighbors or around the villages. I heard a lot. Like same things. And for his epistemology, and then two given kind of two given things that we must start with to know something. And first is the first principle. He said, there's two givens, and the first principles, and the principles of logic, as well as the general propositions such as the whole is greater than any part, like this. This first principle cannot be proved. Like 1 plus 1 is 2. That's made it, but we cannot prove it. If we ignore it, it's not existing. So based on that one, still everything is going on. Like 1 plus 1 is a really important, right? Axiom in really premises in mathematics. So they are known intuitively, and the first principles, and the second given is the substance, presented by sense experience. So substance and principles are really important. Principle one is kind of abstract, right? but we cannot prove, but that is still there. And the second one is what? Substances and we can see it by sense experience. So he said intellectual has two aspects, and it's one of passive and active. So passive intellect receive the data from the sense. Active intellect examines, analyze, and tries to understand the data by abstracting the forms from the material things given in data. Yeah, that's why usually and exams analyze and understand the data. So kind of when you study PhD, and I think it's from that one, intellectual, right? Truly academic, and you gotta learn how to research in that with the depth of knowledge. So he said that true knowledge is knowledge of knowledge of form, not matter. That's a true knowledge, right? And true knowledge is an understanding of what things are. So we gotta know that what is a form, so substances and the form and what? Form and matters. But he said matter is not a true knowledge. What? And true knowledge is form. And here is he said the movement. He said and prime mover. So Aristotle did not believe the world had a beginning. So he didn't believe that there is beginning. So totally from the Bible, different from the Bible. But he said the unmoved mover is not like a biblical God, but there is. So there is what is unmoved what? Unmoved mover. There's he kind of a prime, it's a prime mover, and from them moving is starting. And here is kind of Aristotle distinguishes four kind of causations, like a formal, binary, efficient, and materials. Here is the T table, right? There's a formal causes is what? Formal causes is a form is there. The design is formal causes. What's material causes? Wood. What is the efficient causes? Carpentry. Who can make like this? What are the final causes? Dining table, like this. Look at this kind of how we can have a kind of causation, then the understanding of the material, the object. So there are causes in a broad sense and four ways of answering the question, why is something as it is? Why is something as it is? And then they involve in four meaning of the word like this. And formal means that kind of gives a kind of a picture, what is a blueprint, and then what is a material is kind of we need plastic or wood, and we need our budgets. What about the efficiency cost, and then how, and you make and how can make tables, and what about the final cost? How they use this one for dining? So, and Aristotle's prime mover is different from the biblical God. The biblical God is not a final causes the world, but efficient cause as well. who is sustains and who is controls, right? He is not only the logical reasoning of the universe and the what? Temporal of beginning. Yeah, it's a little bit different from there. But primary mover causes motion as the final causes, like a table, right? That's a primary movers. But primary mover is now an unmoved mover, rather than the efficient. But that leaves open the question, what is the efficient cause of motion in the world? Like this. And what does prime mover do if he does not efficiently cause things to happen? And if he does not love the world? That's questions. What about the and he's really he still had a kind of study of ethics, and it's a Nicodemus ethics, right? And each being should act in accordance with its form, that is its nature and purpose. So his basic purpose is teleological, right? Teleological is a purpose. There is a purpose and driven, oriented. So human beings as rational animals, and as with all the other Greek philosophers, the good life is a life of reason. Yeah, that is rational animals, and then what is a good life of reason? So human being is what used to their reason, right? And then they have a good life. So reason tells that the goal of human life is happiness. But happiness is not a pleasure. Just think about whether regardless of whether you are rich or not, and still you can read why and answer the final questions and get a knowledge that's a happiness. So narrow sense of the happiness is kind of a pleasure in Epicureanism. So happiness is a general kind of well-being. It's not a pleasure. So pleasure is at most a means of the end of happiness. But Aristotle says that the good life as a contemplative, thinking, pondering, and was philosophical reasoning. Yeah. So we can see what is a good life in Aristotle. Aristotle kind of distinguishes three aspects of soul. One is a kind of vegetative and sensitive, like vegetative, the appetitive, and then also sensitive is like a spirit, and the rational, and that means that also the rational, right? So the highest the rational. So he also distinguished the moral from the intellectual virtue. So moral virtue pertain to the will, intellectuals is what? To reason. So a little bit different, right? He also distinguished the philosophical wisdom from the practical wisdom. Here's a example. One who has wisdom, he thinks will seek moderation in all all things. So, like make this, make this lead to happiness. Not like this, not wisdom. But that is a kind of a wisdom, but it often possible to determine our specific duty by calculating means between two extremes. But Aristotle, so it's a philosophical wisdom is kind of disinterested and it's not the contemplative. It's different from the wisdom that we usually say, right? And kind of answer is the question is the John Brain said it. He made he kind of a question. So there is a question. He got the question. Look at this, and there is a question as to how we can begin to acquire moral virtue. Aristotle teaches that we need to have a virtue disposition to perform virtue act. Right, that's disposition is kind of forms, right? You have that one, but that we need to perform moral acts in order to form the habits and produce virtuous dispositions. But Christian revelation has an answer. God's grace creates a moral disposition in sinners and endures them to follow those dispositions. And also answer another major problem in Aristotle's ethics. So basically, he tried to follow the natural law, and explained all his philosophy, even ethics. It's not just even though it's based on the natural law. So mostly think about in Greek philosophers and their thinkings, their philosophies, and their kind of reasoning is based on the natural law. It's not the revelation like the Bible, right? So it's a different, Here is kind of a comparison between Plato and Aristotle. And maybe, maybe you could kind of summarize, just to remember and kind of distinguish both positions. Look at this, Plato separates the forms from the material object, right? But Aristotle insisted on the inseparability form and the matter. Still, even though you cannot see he said it had both, right? Substance. And Plato made the universal primary and then particular secondary, but Aristotle made the particulars primary and universal secondary. Really different. And Plato emphasized being over becoming, and Aristotle emphasized becoming over being. What is this one? That is kind of an abstract. That one is kind of an experiential, a little bit different, right? And Plato celebrated mathematics as a model of the pure thought, but Aristotle grounded his philosophical system in biology. A little bit different. Not everything here, but still, you can guess. I got something from, so I'm gonna try to kind of summary, but I try to find a summary of the comparison between them, so I got it. Well, Plato is the highest form of knowledge, is knowledge of the pure form, or forms and ideals. So Platonic idealism. But for Aristotle, knowledge is grounded in empirical reality. So he said he a little bit different from Doya. And Aristotelian's empiricism. So Plato philosophy tends towards the transcendental, but Aristotle philosophy tends toward the immanent. And Plato favored the intuition of a logic. Aristotle made logic the basis of his thought. But look at this when they emphasize and then basic things, and intuition is really big things, right? And Plato used to reason to overcome the physical world, but Aristotle used to reason to discover the order of the world. And Plato influenced Saint Augustine, and Aristotle influenced Saint Thomas. A little bit different, philosophers, maybe, we can see them who they are. Their metaphysics and their epistemologies and ethics, somehow it's some same and some little bit similar, but some other different, right? So that is the how we can see how they understand the world, and Okay, that is the introduction of Aristotle and Plato, and Socrates. And here is Stoicism. Stoicism is founded by Zeno of Cyprus around 334 and 262 BC. They are, it's like, they want to understand the world by the atom, like materials. So we call them materialists, and teaching that only physical object is real. Physical object is real. And they acknowledge many differences within the broad categories. But let's see. The soul, Stoicism said the soul made of the very fine matter. But rocks and dirt is out of coarse matter. So a little bit different, and different materials. So soul is usually fine, made of the fine matter, but the rocks and dirt and coarse matter. So even virtue of material, virtue is kind of do good, right? What is it? Virtue means that scientists said it's good, goodness, and that, but they can exist in the same place as other matter, material, but still exist in the same place as other matter. So virtue can be in the soul. There is their logic. So something is material is simply to say that it really is, and it has been being. It has being, right? That's the material. And they said that knowledge begins in authenticating sensation. Sensations. Look at this, and then that means that we can have knowledge, right? And the world is a single reality governed by its own world soul, and it means that everybody has their own soul is a pantheistic rules all by natural law. So, and everything is their own reality, and governs by the what? Its own soul. And think about the what is that? I don't remember the vocabulary, so maybe next time if I remember. And everything happened by law, and then Stoics took the fatalistic attitude toward the life. Just think about the natural law is it's usually basic towards the Greek philosophers basic is what they use the natural law, right? And so because they don't have revelation like the Bible, and took a fatalist attitude toward life, but the Stoics sought to act in accordance with nature, so they sought to be resign their fate. Their ethics are the one about learning to want what one gets rather than the getting the one what one wants, right? But they did not advocate to be pessimistic. Okay, they're not fatalist. So one should live according to the reason, which is also according to the nature and according to the universal structure of a society. They consider human society to be a universal brotherhood. They believe that what is then, and there is a reality there, right? Governs by it. That's why. But still, reason is really important. But when we see the society, and sometimes I don't know, we are really analytical and reasonable, but sometimes society is not run by the reason and reasonable was a reason or the always and true knowledge, and knowledge is there, reason is there, but there is there is ignorance and in negligence, and that's why become chaotic, I think. If you follow the reason and then common sense is working, then we are not going to have much problem though. But if we don't follow the reason and then common sense doesn't work, then what happens? And just think about subjectivism, right? So depends on me, and that's my own rules I want to do. What makes me happy? Yeah, that's why it's a little bit different. He considers human society to be a universal brotherhood. They are the really major source of the natural law thinking in ethics. So even though the Stoics tried to overcome the form matter dichotomy by making the whole world material, there can remain a secondary dichotomy between the world, soul, and the being within. That is still different. There is a Stoic Stoics basic idea, basic philosophy, and what about the Epicurus? And then he is the kind of he is the hedonist or the materialist, And then they so look at this and then and Epicurus and atoms kind of move through space and collide with one another to form the object. That is the basic idea. And one, this view reality kind of consists entirely of atom and empty space, right? There's moving, and we saw that there was a mixture, they put together mixtures, right? And produce new one, and then they separate what? The void, like this, emptiness. They said, and so reality consists entirely of atoms and empty space balls, right? They tended to fall in one direction, or sort of cosmology, cosmic, down. Normally, just think about the line parallel to the one another, but how they try to explain how the atom moves, up and down, like this maybe, but the Epicurus kind of moves toward vertical path. It's not vertical kind of swerve, right? And the swerve is entirely uncaused, and then account for the formation of object. Something like so you also account for human free choice. It kind of they use that one and then like a swerve, and then we can do or not, and then he explained the human free choice. The human beings are able to act apart from the causal determinations, and because the atom of the bodies sometimes swerve inexplicably. There is already, I don't know, there is an exception is there, how can we say? And the first philosopher to identify human freedom with the casual indeterminacy. So just think about causal indeterminacy, and then we can human freedom, and then to make each indeterminacy the base of the moral responsibilities. But still, sometimes we don't misunderstand the basic philosophy like this, and then David freedom is sometimes called libertarianism. That's freedom. I don't know how exactly applied to this one, but I read the book, and there's no how they swerve, and then how they apply to a human being. But I don't go that deep, and then but still, the scholars interpret in that way, and so I kind of picked the explanation. So if you are interested, and then you can see, and so responsibilities leads to think about ethics. So Epicurus is eager to apply the atomism to moral questions. So one wonder indeed what sort of ethics can emerge from such a thoroughgoing materialism. So basically they have the freedom and then liberationalism. So Epicurus' ethic is that we should avoid pain and seek pleasure. So maybe you heard a lot. So when you think about Epicureans and then they are the pursuing the happiness, right? Pleasure. But still, they have short-term, long-term pleasures and teach that on the whole, a quiet, peaceful, contemplative life is most pleasurable. It's not just material things that feel and then we are really satisfied with something that we have. It's not that kind of stuff, right? And just think about peaceful, contemplative life is most pleasurable. But still, they said should avoid pain, and pain is not the pleasurable, right? But problem is, what is the problem? Epicurus. Epicurus' problem is in the normal sense of pleasure. There are many things that human being values more highly. What about someone died for others? Altruism. How can we explain? Maybe some said, there is no altruism. What about the Bible said? Depends on if you have a different standard of life and then really selfish and then really person oriented. Someone is a little bit different and then they have a little bit, not every time, but a little bit consider others and think about others, and think about whole global communities, and then it just sometimes it's very small, it's not influential, but they think it's different and they do in their capacity. It's different. Like who really pursuing the convenience of convenience of life, they use a lot of disposable, like plastics, and they don't think about it cheap and use of plastics and all kind of stuff. But if you little bit higher value standard, and then it should be struggling with global warming and contamination. Now you use the plastic water bottle instead, and then we can use the water bottle. It's a little bit different, value or criteria of life. How can they explain? And then pleasure. And if we define pleasure so broadly as to include all other values, including self-sacrifice, then it loses the meaning. It doesn't distinguish pleasurable from the non-pleasurable activities, right? Even if it is true that people value pleasure in some sense above all else, it is a logical jump to say that we ought to value pleasure above all things, all else. But the ought is what ethics is all about. But the ought is what ethics is all about. Okay, so little bit even though they pursue happiness, and then there is based on their logical process, but reasoning, but still we gotta think about more. And it's really clear that in wanting to exclude the supernatural, from any roles in the world. But without a personal God, how can one account for validated thinking and the authority of the moral principle? That is a question. Look at the worldview though. It's a totally different worldview, right? And let's finish that one. Yeah. What about Plato? Yeah, Plotinus. Yeah, Plotinus is like just think about at the time. It's really materialist philosophy is prevalent, like Stoicism and Epicureans, and then he tried to go back. There is still the followers of Plato's, and then still there is a lot of disciplines, but still really the materialism is dominated. Think about Platonism. Platonism really abstract and based on the what? Idealism, right? It's totally different though. And Plotinus came out and then tried to go back to kind of a idealism, and that's he is different. So he said that materialism cannot explain thought. Materialism cannot identify the subject of knowledge, the one who knows, the one who uses the sense to gain knowledge. As Plato said, that the most real being is immaterial, including human soul. That's true, right? And he tried to kind of bring back the Platonism. And Plotinus described the chain of being with the supreme being at the top of the scale. And the descending level is order, mind, soul, and the material world. Do you know who is like that? And he conceived of the latter as a down password and the upward password. And who is the one all the way top, and the mind, and then soul, and what? Material world. And the one is the top has no quality, no properties, and what? The only way to know the one is through being mysterically united him. In trance itself cannot be described. It seems like Moses met God, in the mountain Sinai. But the only way to know the one is through being mystically united to him. It's a little bit different, right? It's around 205 and 250 AD, right? 250. So just think about this is called Neo-Platonism, and then that's kind of he has a little bit different philosophical mind, and then influence the world, and then what? People learn philosophy and then think about what they believe. And they're really chaotic when they, between the previous one, religion and the new thought. Maybe I will consider when we talk about the early Christian thought and then philosophy, what was their kind of issues and how they defended their faith. What's the different understanding of a faith and human being and gods. So Plotinus, does say that which says a great deal about the one that is exists, that is, does not have any quality of being in the material world. That is immaterial, and soul may enter the mystical relationship with it. So emphasize the one communicated excellence to the lower being, lower being. But it's not, the one is not to separate from the lower. Communicate, right? Can you see that a little bit different? And so it's a little bit minor difference from the Platonism, but still they mainly use the Plato's philosophies. So he said he used the emanations, like light coming from the fire. To talk about the communication to the lower beings, and the one does not really choose to emanate. Rather, it cannot help but do so, right? And that's one of the ways that they can communicate. And also, the emanation is emanation. And the first product of emanation and the second level of reality is what? Mind. So, Plotinus represented as a result of the one's thought. It's a mind. Still ideal, right? And there is a third level of the soul, and what's the second level is mind, and third level is soul, and then the mind generates the object of thought and the product of soul or life. So Plotinus and soul is like Plato's demiurgy, and Heraclitus the logos. So soul governs the world from within the world, right? And the Plotinus described the three parts of soul, and then the soul of world soul, which explains motion and then change. The middle soul gives life to a particular soul. The lower soul, which gives rise to body. Human soul is immortal. That's a basic understanding of human being and souls, right? The fourth level is a material level. There's the 4 levels, and then you are talking about the 4 levels, and second is the mind, and first one is the one, and the third one is the soul, and the fourth level is the material world. We are souls contained in the material bodies, and human being. The condition is the result of a fall, which results because our soul have accepted the guidance of sensation and become entangled with the material. That's the fall, right? That's the human souls. We are kind of kept, we kind of humans are kind of captive of the human bodies, right? The soul, I mean. So, method of ascent, just think about one to material. Ascending is through knowledge, which is also growing in virtue. So, material and soul and mind and the one, like this. But the one can be understood as a result of the rationalistic impulse. Rationalistic mean that rational. You need to be rational. And then we can understand the one. So he said ultimate knowledge comes from not from the reasoning, but from the mysticism, from the ineffable union with the one. So he opened a little bit door for the little bit. He said, what is the communication with the one is coming. Emanations and how can we know that the one, mystical united? And he said that the ultimate knowledge is not from the what reasoning, but from the mysticism. So at the time, so you gotta know that the Gnosticism is it's really they have secret knowledge, and that is kind of big influence. I think it's influence from the neo philosophy of Platonism, and that's one of the really prevalent at that times. So we saw the Neoplatonism and Aristotle and then Plato's and Epicureans and then Stoicism and Socrates, but we can see the kind of idea about logos, and then Paul at the time he talked to the philosophers and Epicureanism and then Stoicism philosophers, and then he the people at that time, or people in area in influence, under influence, and what they really think about the pleasurism, pleasure, right? Pursuing the pleasure, that's influenced a lot. And Gnosticism is still influence a lot on Christians, and then they kind of challenge to the Christian doctrines, the traditional doctrine, and then there's a lot of argument, and then they finalize, and then that's a Christian thought, early Christians. So we can, early churches, so we can talk about them later. So maybe it helps you what is the similar things going on, because always think about the some things are coming up, like even though God used to write the Bible through the authors, and then still used what human people and cultural background what they have, right? Don't even know that not even though this is a Bible has that's why when we read the Bible we gotta know the cultural background, the historical background, but we gotta pay attention to literal interpretation and context. That's we gotta consider all things, and then we can see what it means. Because of a lot of influence from the outside, because I born at the time, I influenced by these people, but still a lot of people are influenced by them, and then when you write the letters, when you write something, and still my expression is my experience, based on my experience and my influence, right? That's why we need to know. Hope there's a we're gonna learn the words Hellenistic philosophers and then Roman philosophers, and then we can see the Christian thought in the early period of Christianity. Yeah, that is a basic idea about the Greek philosophy, yeah, ideas and then understanding of a cosmos, the universe from the Greek philosophers, and then how they build up their knowledge and how they think about how to live, right? But heavily, remember the heavily rely on the natural law, right? And but they still thinking about what primary tool is the reason, right? Reason. It's not our sensation, but the Plotinus he opened the door like a little bit different way. It's mystical and well, the union with the one, and then like yeah. So ultimate knowledge is not from the reasoning, but it's a little bit yeah. He's coming out of from the box of Greek philosophies, and then maybe open to the different way, right? So I hope that it's a little bit brief summary of what they think. It's not a detail, so I hope that you can get some glimpse of what they think and think about, right? And then when we talk about the Christian thought, and then I hope that how you can understand the cultural background and philosophical kind of background, right? And cultural background. So I hope that it's helpful, and even though you have a question to me, a lot of this stuff, but I cannot give you the depth of knowledge because, yeah, and I can guide you kind of a basic introductory knowledge of the philosophers. Maybe we can talk about a little bit in-depth discussion in Christian thought in the beginning, in the early Christianities. Okay, so I hope that be helpful. They will understand what philosophy and philosophers are thinking about. So you guys have a really great week, and then I hope to stay healthy and maybe God bless you. So take care of yourself very well. Okay, so God bless you guys.